We are live inside the EP Official Election Center on what could be one of the most consequential midterm nights in American history. It's election night 2026, and Democrats are fighting to win back the United States Senate, aiming to place a check on President Donald Trump in the final 2 years of his second term. The stakes could not be higher. The balance of power in Washington is on the line as battleground voters decide the fate of Trump's agenda. The clock has just struck 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and the first major polls have closed. Moments from now, results will start pouring in from Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Virginia. All eyes are locked on Georgia, but every state tonight will help reveal the national mood as this historic night unfolds. We have our first projection of the night. In South Carolina, EP can project that Senator Lindsey Graham has won re-election, defeating Democrat Annie Andrews and securing a fifth 6-year term in the Senate. Meanwhile, it's far too early to call in Georgia, where Democrat Jon Ossoff is locked in a battle for a second term in one of the nation's fiercest battlegrounds. Georgia is one of just 2 Democratic seats in states Donald Trump carried in 2024, and if Democrats hope to flip the Senate, this is a seat they cannot afford to lose. In Kentucky, this seat is open for the first time in more than 40 years, as Congressman Andy Barr looks to succeed Mitch McConnell, the former Senate Majority Leader and longest-serving senator in Kentucky history who has stepped aside. And in Virginia, Democratic incumbent Mark Warner is heavily favored to win a 4th term over State Senator Bryce Reeves. But at poll closing, it remains too early to call. So where does that leave the balance of power? With South Carolina staying in the Republican column, the GOP now holds 32 seats to Democrats' 34. Republicans are defending more turf tonight, 22 of the 35 seats up for election, but Democrats face the tougher map, clinging to 2 seats in Trump states, Georgia and Michigan, and 5 more in states Kamala Harris carried by a single-digit margin. Republicans, meanwhile, are only playing defense in 1 Harris state, Maine, and 1 single-digit Trump state, North Carolina. And remember, Republicans only need 50 seats to keep control, thanks to Vice President J.D. Vance's tie-breaking vote. Democrats must reach 51 by night's end to take the majority. This is just the beginning. Much more ahead. Stay with us. Alright, EP can now project that Andy Barr has won the Senate race in Kentucky. The Lexington congressman ascends to the upper chamber with a victory over Pamela Stephenson, the minority leader of the Kentucky State House. That puts Republicans at 33 seats in the Senate, just 1 behind the Democrats, with 2 key races in Virginia and Georgia still too close to call. We are fast approaching the second major poll closing of the night here at 7:30 Eastern. First results are about to arrive from North Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia. 2 of these states, Ohio and North Carolina, feature high-stakes Senate races that could define control of the chamber. We begin with a projection in West Virginia. EP can confirm that incumbent Senator Shelley Moore Capito has won re-election to a 3rd term. No surprise there, and no surprise too that North Carolina remains too close to call. This is the most expensive race of the 2026 cycle. Republican Michael Whatley, the former RNC chair handpicked by Donald Trump, is trying to hold the seat against former Democratic Governor Roy Cooper, who's aiming to become the first Democrat to win a federal race in the state since Barack Obama in 2008. Democrats have come within 6 points in each of the last 4 presidential and Senate contests in the Tar Heel state, but tonight may be their best chance yet. Meanwhile, in Ohio, unelected Republican incumbent John Husted is seeking to win his first full term in the Senate after being appointed to replace J.D. Vance when he ascended to the presidency. Standing in his way, a formidable opponent in former Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrats' top recruit in Ohio, who is now looking to reclaim the seat he lost in 2024. And here's where things stand. With Capito's victory in West Virginia, Republicans and Democrats are now tied at 34 seats apiece. 32 seats remain in play. Remember, Republicans need just 50 seats to retain control of the Senate. Democrats must gain a net 4 seats to flip the balance of power. EP has another projection. Right now, EP is projecting that incumbent Senator Mark Warner from Virginia will be reelected. He defeats Bryce Reeves. An expected Democratic hold, Warner's victory brings their total to 35 seats. Georgia, North Carolina, and Ohio remain too close to call as we near the top of the hour. Time now for a key race alert. We're fast approaching the largest poll closing of the night as results begin to pour in. 31 races will be decided over the next several hours. Democrats currently hold 35 seats, Republicans 34, with 3 races, Georgia, North Carolina, and Ohio, still too close to call. Early returns favor the challengers, but those margins are expected to tighten as more votes come in from across the states and across different vote types. President Trump posted on Truth Social tonight saying he doesn't expect a red wave, but remains confident Republicans will hold the Senate. We've got a long way to go, and we're glad you're with us. 12 Senate contests are on the line as precincts are about to close at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. This is the biggest round of poll closings tonight, stretching from as far east as the critical race in Maine out to Oklahoma. EP is tracking a number of competitive races at this hour, and we've got a whole lot of projections to make right now. Here we go. EP is projecting that Chris Coons from Delaware has won re-election to a 4th term in the Senate, defeating Republican Eric Hansen. Then in Massachusetts, progressive incumbent Ed Markey, the Democratic senator, will defeat John Deaton, who falls for a 2nd consecutive cycle in Massachusetts. And in Rhode Island, Jack Reed, the Democrat who has held this seat since 1996, will hold it for another 6 years. Reed wins re-election in Rhode Island. EP also has a couple of projections for Republicans. In Alabama, Steve Marshall, the state attorney general who emerged out a crowded field of Republicans hoping to succeed Tommy Tuberville, has defeated Democrat Kyle Sweetser. And in Florida, incumbent Ashley Moody, appointed to replace Marco Rubio upon his nomination to be Secretary of State, has won election to her first full term in the Senate, cruising by a near double-digit margin over former Brevard County School Board member Jennifer Jenkins. Also in Mississippi, the Republican incumbent Cindy Hyde-Smith will easily win re-election to a 2nd full term, defeating Democrat Scott Collum. Then in Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin, the Republican incumbent who won the special election to this seat back in 2024, wins re-election to his first full term over Democrat Jasmine Thomas. And finally, in Tennessee, Republican Senator Bill Hagerty also wins re-election, rounding out a flurry of projections here at the 8 o'clock hour. Several races are too close to call as well. Illinois, once a state Democrats could take for granted on nights like this, not anymore. Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy looks to hold the seat long held by Dick Durbin, while former Republican State Party Chair Don Tracy looks to speed up Illinois' trend to the right. In Maine, Republican Susan Collins faces her toughest re-election yet against Graham Plattner, an oyster farmer who overcame the odds to defeat Governor Janet Mills in the Democratic primary. This is the lone seat Republicans are defending in a state Kamala Harris won in the 2024 election, and has been a top target for Democrats this cycle. Keep in mind, ranked choice voting can come into play if neither candidate hits 50%, something the polls have suggested is a real possibility tonight. In New Hampshire, one of many seats made more competitive due to a Democratic retirement. Congressman Chris Pappas looks to hold it for the Democrats against former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown, and in New Jersey, Senator Cory Booker is under pressure as he seeks another term. His opponent, Republican Chris Durr, is looking to ride a wave of conservative momentum that has jolted New Jersey politics in recent years. Too close to call for now. And with those projections, let's take another look at the balance of power in the Senate. With 5 calls in their favor, Republicans now hold 39 seats to Democrats' 38. That leaves 23 seats still outstanding, 7 too close to call, and 16 where polls remain open, including in battlegrounds like Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Texas. Time now for another key race alert. EP is now projecting that Senator Cory Booker has been reelected in New Jersey. The Democratic incumbent defeats former state Senator Edward Durr by a comfortable margin, 55% to 44% in the final estimated vote count. This is another hold for Democrats, pulling them even with Republicans at 39 seats apiece. At this hour, 6 races remain too close to call. 3 currently held by Democrats, and 3 by Republicans. Let's take a closer look at those numbers now. Another poll closing is just minutes away at 8:30 Eastern, but let's take a quick look at the map. Republicans and Democrats are tied at 39 seats, with 6 races still too close to call. GOP candidates lead in Georgia and Maine. Dems lead in North Carolina, Ohio, Illinois, and New Hampshire. But as we've learned in the mail-in ballot era, early numbers rarely tell the full story. In Georgia, Jon Ossoff is expected to surge as Democratic votes from Atlanta roll in. In Ohio and North Carolina, it's the reverse. Sherrod Brown and Roy Cooper must defend early leads against late Republican strength. Much more to come. This is election night in America 2026. It's 8:30 p.m. on the East Coast, and the polls are set to close in Arkansas. Let's get an EP projection now. An EP can make the projection here that Tom Cotton will win re-election in Arkansas. No surprise here, the chairman of the Senate Republican Conference, Cotton will serve a third 6-year term out of Arkansas, defeating Democrat Hallie Schaffner. And with that, Republicans are now just 10 seats shy of holding their majority in the Senate. 21 races remain as we continue to monitor the latest numbers out of key battlegrounds across the country. EP has a projection out of Illinois. Congressman Raja Krishnamurthy will be the next U.S. Senator from the state, winning the race to succeed longtime Democratic whip Dick Durbin. Krishnamurthy defeats former Republican State Party Chairman Don Tracy by a decisive double-digit margin. That victory pulls Democrats, even with Republicans in the Senate, at 40 seats apiece. Just 20 races remain on the map, and Democrats still need a net gain of 4 to flip control of the chamber tonight. We've got our first major projection of the night. EP can now call the Senate race in New Hampshire for Democrat Chris Pappas. The congressman from the Granite State's 1st District has been elected to the Senate, succeeding Jeanne Shaheen and defeating Republican Scott Brown, the former Massachusetts senator, by about 5 points in our final projection. It's a crucial hold for Democrats, who are now projected to have 41 seats to Republicans' 40 of the 4 races where polls have closed but remain too close to call. We're watching Georgia and North Carolina especially closely. Democrats Jon Ossoff and Roy Cooper are hoping to chip away at early deficits as more early and absentee ballots are counted. Let's take a look now. We came into tonight with the sense that neither party would leave entirely satisfied, and that seems to be holding true. Democrats are favored to pick up at least 1 seat, but they are not expected to net enough to reclaim a majority in the United States Senate. Right now, 4 states remain too close to call as we near the top of the hour, 9 o'clock Eastern, when polls close in a series of competitive races that will go a long way in shaping which party feels more optimistic about the road ahead. Stay with us. We are moments away from the second largest wave of the night. At 9 o'clock Eastern, polls close in 11 Senate races across the country. Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Texas, some of the most competitive battlegrounds are in play, and EP has projections ready to go starting right now. EP has a projection for Democrats. Out of Colorado, Senator John Hickenlooper has won re-election to a second term, defeating Republican challenger Janak Joshi. A former governor and longtime fixture in Colorado politics, Hickenlooper has said this will be his final Senate race. As for Republicans, starting in Kansas, EP can project incumbent Roger Marshall has won re-election to another term in Kansas, defeating Democrat Christy Davis. In Louisiana, EP is projecting that incumbent Republican Senator Bill Cassidy will be re-elected after surviving a contested Republican primary. And in South Dakota, Mike Rounds, the incumbent Republican senator, defeats Democrat Julian Beaudillon. Rounds wins re-election in South Dakota. And finally, in Wyoming, Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis wins re-election to another term in Wyoming. We are not yet able to make projections in a number of key states. In Iowa, Republican Congresswoman Ashley Hinson is running to succeed retiring Senator Joni Ernst. Democrats have nominated State Representative Josh Turek. Too early to call in Iowa. In Michigan, one of the cycle's most closely watched races, Democrats are defending an open seat after Senator Gary Peters announced his retirement. State Senator Mallory McMorrow is looking to hold the seat against former Congressman Mike Rogers, who came within a point of winning here back in 2024. Michigan is one of just 2 Democratic-held seats in states Donald Trump carried that year. In Minnesota, another Democratic retirement, with Senator Tina Smith opting not to run again. This contest is expected to be less competitive as Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan looks to hold the seat against former NBA player and 2024 GOP nominee Royce White. Nebraska is also too early to call, where independent Dan Osborne is once again challenging a Republican senator, this time Pete Ricketts, after a surprisingly strong showing in 2024. In New Mexico, it's a rematch. Democratic incumbent Ben Ray Lujan faces Republican Mark Ronchetti for the second time. And finally, in Texas, Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton ousted Senator John Cornyn in the primary, setting up a more competitive general election against Democrat James Tallarico, a state representative and fundraising powerhouse who emerged as his party's Cinderella nominee. Here's the updated Senate map. 10 races are now in the too close to call column, with just 4 states left where polls remain open. Republicans hold 44 seats so far, Democrats 42. And with more votes pouring in from key battlegrounds, let's take a look. big call here. EP can project that Ken Paxton has won in Texas, defeating Democrat James Tallarico to become the Lone Star State's next United States Senator. The state attorney general and Trump ally, impeached by his own party just 3 years ago, successfully ousted incumbent John Cornyn in the primary, accusing him of being insufficiently conservative. Paxton's margin tonight is notably closer than expected in a state Trump carried by nearly 14 points in 2024. But it's still another victory for Republicans in a state Democrats haven't won at the Senate level since 1988. Tallarico ran a strong, well-funded campaign, but ultimately fell short despite Paxton's legal baggage. It's a major hold for Republicans. While Democrats were never favored in Texas, it was one of the long-shot states they needed for their narrow path to a majority. With Texas now safely in the GOP column, Republicans are 5 seats away from holding control of the chamber. For Democrats to reach 51 seats, they now need upsets in at least 2 of Ohio, Iowa, or Nebraska, on top of winning every other race currently too close to call. That includes Georgia, where Jon Ossoff appears on the verge of taking the lead with another favorable drop out of the Atlanta suburbs, and North Carolina, where Roy Cooper has pulled within 1.5 points. Let's take a look now. Clock strikes 10 Eastern as polls close in Montana, and we have an EP projection to make right now. EP can project that incumbent Senator Steve Daines has won re-election in Montana, defeating Democrat Riley Neal. That victory raises the Republican seat count to 46, just 4 shy of the 50 they need to hold control of the Senate. We're keeping a close eye on Georgia, where Democrat Jon Ossoff has just taken the lead with about 85% of the vote counted. That would be a major hold for Democrats, but remember, they still need 4 pickups to flip the chamber, a prospect that grows slimmer even as they lead in Maine and narrow the gap in North Carolina. But in Ohio, Sherrod Brown's early lead is slipping away. Let's get a key race alert. EP has another call, this one from New Mexico. Democrat Ben Ray Lujan wins re-election, defeating Republican Mark Ronchetti for a second time, this time by a decisive double-digit margin. With this victory, Democrats now hold 43 seats in the Senate. That leaves 13 races uncalled, 10 of them still too close to call. That includes Michigan, where Democrat Mallory McMorrow holds an early edge, Georgia, where Senator Jon Ossoff is inching toward the 50% mark needed to avoid a runoff, North Carolina, where Roy Cooper continues to narrow the gap with each new vote drop, and Maine, where less than 15% of the vote has been reported so far. For Democrats, the math is daunting. They likely need to sweep all 4 of those contests, plus at least 2 more to flip control of the chamber. Let's get another key race alert. Big call here in Ohio. EP can project that Senator Jon Husted has won re-election. Husted secures his first full term after being appointed to replace Vice President J.D. Vance. He defeats Democrat Sherrod Brown, the former senator and prized Democratic recruit, by nearly the same margin as Brown's 2024 loss, 51% to 47%. Husted, a well-known figure in Ohio politics with a reputation as a pragmatic Republican, delivers a major blow to Democrats' already slim hopes of flipping the chamber. Republicans now hold 47 seats, just 3 shy of the majority, and if they can hold their expected seats in Idaho and Alaska, they'll need only 1 more from the 7 contests still too close to call. That pickup could come soon in Iowa, where Republican Ashley Hinson has just retaken the lead. Let's get an update on those races now. We have a major call to make. EP can project that Democrat Jon Ossoff has been reelected in Georgia, defeating Republican Congressman Mike Collins. For hours, we've tracked the familiar Georgia storyline. Republicans jump out early, Democrats claw back late. This time, Collins's firewall wasn't enough. In our final projection, Ossoff wins re-election by 2 points, 50.4% to 48.3%, avoiding a runoff and ultimately securing a more comfortable margin than 6 years ago when he barely forced a runoff before winning by just over a point. We can also project a result in Iowa. Republican Ashley Hinson has defeated Democrat Josh Turek. The Congresswoman succeeds, retiring Senator Joni Ernst, holding the seat for Republicans by more than 8 points. While narrower than Trump's 2024 margin in the state, it is still a comfortable victory that all but guarantees the GOP will maintain control of the Senate. With this win, Republicans climb to 48 seats, just 2 shy of the majority, with Idaho and Alaska still outstanding and expected to remain in their column. That leaves just 5 races too close to call: North Carolina, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, and Nebraska. Let's get an update on those contests now. You're looking live inside DNC headquarters as we near the top of the hour. Democrats are building momentum in their push to flip Republican-held seats in North Carolina and Maine, where their challengers hold narrow leads at this moment. Our decision desk is reporting that independent Dan Osborne's edge in Nebraska is unlikely to hold, with remaining ballots expected to break heavily for incumbent Pete Ricketts and push him over the top. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, we're awaiting a massive drop of early and absentee ballots, votes expected to strongly favor Democrats and quickly erase Royce White's current lead. Plenty of counting still ahead. Stay with us. We're only seconds away now from the penultimate poll closing of the evening as polls close in the West Coast states of Idaho and Oregon. No major surprises expected in either state as EP has a pair of projections coming in right now. In Idaho, incumbent Republican Jim Risch wins re-election. EP can project Risch will serve a fifth term in the Senate as he defeats Democrat Dave Roth. And in Oregon, EP is projecting that the incumbent Democrat Jeff Merkley will be re-elected, defeating Republican Tim Skelton. That's one for Republicans and one for Democrats, bringing the GOP to 49 seats, just a single step away from the 50 they need to hold the majority. With polls still open only in Alaska, that race alone could put Republicans over the top, even as they remain behind in all 5 of the contests too close to call. It's still early in Maine, and in Nebraska, independent Dan Osborne's edge over Pete Ricketts is shrinking with every update. Let's get a key race alert. We have a call in the land of lakes. EP can project Peggy Flanagan, a Democrat, has won the Senate race in Minnesota. The lieutenant governor defeats Republican Royce White and will become the next U.S. Senator from Minnesota. Our final projection shows Flanagan taking 52.6% of the vote, a decisive margin. Once again, Republicans fall short, still without a federal statewide win in Minnesota in the entire 21st century. This win pushes Democrats to 46 seats, closing the gap with Republicans at 49. Just 5 races remain on the board, and the GOP trails in all of them, including North Carolina, where momentum could be building toward the first flip of the night. Let's get a key race alert. It's a big one. EP is projecting that Democrat Roy Cooper has won the U.S. Senate race in North Carolina. The former governor is now headed to Washington as North Carolina's next senator. This is a major projection, the first pickup of the night for either party in the most expensive contest of this midterm cycle. Cooper defeats Republican Michael Whatley by about 1.5 points, delivering Democrats their first federal victory in North Carolina, presidential or Senate, since Barack Obama in 2008. The race shot to the top of Democrats' target list the moment Cooper entered, and tonight he delivers. With this win, Democrats are projected to secure at least as many seats as they began the cycle with, 47, and notch a net gain of 1. They're also eyeing another potential pickup in Maine, where it looks increasingly likely the race will head to ranked choice tabulation. Now attention shifts to Michigan, where Democrat Mallory McMorrow's lead is shrinking as Republican Mike Rogers closes the gap with each new vote drop. Let's take a look. The clock strikes midnight on the East Coast, and with that, polls are closing in Alaska, the final state to report Senate votes tonight. No call yet in Alaska, and we don't expect the first vote drop for a few more hours. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan is trying to fend off a challenge from former Congresswoman Mary Peltola, a top Democratic recruit. And keep in mind, Alaska's ranked choice system could drag this contest out. If neither candidate clears 50%, it could be weeks before we have a winner. EP can now project that Republicans will maintain control of the United States Senate, an important win for President Donald Trump and for the Republican Party. Democrats entered the night facing long odds and a daunting map, and those challenges proved too great. Once again, EP is projecting Republicans have won enough seats to retain their Senate majority. And here's why. In Nebraska, EP has called the race for incumbent Pete Ricketts, who has held off independent challenger Dan Osborne. Ricketts comes closer to losing than his colleague Deb Fischer did 2 years ago, but still prevails by about 4.5 points. Osborne mounts another strong but ultimately unsuccessful campaign. Ricketts remains in the Senate for another 6 years. And here's the balance of power. With the Nebraska hold, Republicans now sit at 50 seats to Democrats' 47. Remember, Republicans only need 50 to retain the majority, since Vice President J.D. Vance can cast a tie-breaking vote. 3 states remain uncalled: Maine, Michigan, and Alaska. Democrats have picked up 1 seat so far and are eyeing another in Maine. Republicans' last hope for a pickup lies in Michigan, where they've retaken a narrow lead. But with large batches of votes still to come from deep blue Detroit, that contest won't be decided tonight. In fact, none of the remaining races are expected to be called until tomorrow. Let's take another look at the numbers in those states now. Good morning, America. It's election night continued here inside the EP Election Center. 3 Senate races remain uncalled: Michigan, Maine, and Alaska. We've already projected that Republicans have secured enough seats to retain their majority, with 50. Remember, Vice President J.D. Vance holds the power to cast the tie-breaking vote. Democrats currently sit at 47 seats, but they are ahead in Maine and appear on the verge of retaking the lead in Michigan as favorable urban vote drops continue to come in. There's still a lot of counting to do today, and EP will have it all covered. After nearly 16 hours of counting, EP can finally make a call in Michigan. We project Democrat Mallory McMorrow has held the seat, defeating Republican Mike Rogers. McMorrow, once seen as an underdog in a crowded primary, rises from the state Senate to the United States Senate. For Rogers, it's déjà vu, a second straight defeat by less than a point. In a state where Republicans haven't captured a Senate seat in more than 3 decades, the wait will continue. This hold is pivotal for Democrats. It guarantees they finish the cycle with at least one more seat than they began, with 48 in total. Republicans, however, still maintain control of the chamber with at least 50 seats. 2 contests remain unresolved in Maine and Alaska. In Maine, we're still waiting to see if ranked choice tabulation will be triggered, with Democratic challenger Graham Plattner hovering just above 50%. And in Alaska, a series of stronger-than-expected returns have put Republican Dan Sullivan in a favorable position to avoid ranked choice as well. Let's take a look at the latest numbers. We've got a call in Alaska here, as EP is projecting Dan Sullivan wins re-election, defeating Democrat Mary Peltola. Sullivan narrowly clears the 50% threshold, finishing with 51.9% to Peltola's 45.1%, avoiding a ranked choice count. It's a much closer race than expected, nearly half of Donald Trump's 2024 margin in the state, a testament to the strength Peltola brought to the Democratic ticket. But in the end, it's a Republican victory that delivers the party a tie-break-proof majority with 51 seats. That extra cushion means President Trump and the GOP can now afford a defection and still control the chamber. We're still awaiting a call in Maine, where Democrat Graham Plattner's vote share has slipped below 50%, likely triggering ranked choice tabulation in the coming weeks. Democrat Graham Plattner has flipped the Senate seat in Maine, unseating Republican Susan Collins for Democrats' second and final pickup of the 2026 midterm cycle. Collins was one of the Senate's last true unicorns, surviving close races in a blue-leaning state. For years, she stood as the lone Republican able to repeatedly win in a state carried by Democrats at the presidential level. Tonight, that streak ends. Plattner, an unlikely nominee but one of the strongest fundraisers of the cycle, a progressive oyster farmer, prevails after ranked choice tabulation with 51.2% to Collins's 48.8%, a margin of about 2.5 points. This victory brings Democrats to 49 seats, placing added pressure on Republican Majority Leader John Thune to keep his caucus united during the final 2 years of President Trump's administration. And with that, my 2026 midterm election night projection is complete. I truly hope you enjoyed the video. I've poured weeks into making this as immersive, detailed, and accurate as possible. Feel free to share your thoughts, disagreements, and feedback in the comments below. If you enjoyed the coverage, please hit like, subscribe, and check out more election analysis right here on the channel. A huge thank you to my channel members listed in the description. You make this possible. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. EP out.